least breaking according to the internet detectives who haven't slept in 3 days, fueled by coffee, screenshots, and a growing sense that something just doesn't add up. Because tell me this, how does a so-called real estate mogul keep building million-dollar dreams that stubbornly refuse to sell? Not once, not twice, but repeatedly. How do luxury homes keep appearing, complete with grand announcements and confident timelines, only to quietly sit on the market collecting dust, speculation, and unanswered questions? And how does a critical conversation, one that could change how viewers understand the entire narrative, just vanish from television like it never existed? Coincidence or convenience? Tonight, we are pulling the curtain back on a story that smells less like fresh lumber and more like damage control. This isn't just about deleted footage or a misedit. This is about patterns. This is about questionable decisions, selective storytelling, and that unmistakable feeling viewers get when something important has been deliberately left out. You know the feeling, the one where you tilt your head and say, wait a minute, that math ain't mathin'. Why was one conversation suddenly too hot for TV? Who decided viewers didn't need the full picture? And why is it that every time accountability shows up on screen, someone behind the scenes suddenly yells, "Cut"? Buckle up, because this isn't just tea. This is a full-blown reality TV reckoning. Let's start exactly where the cameras quietly looked away. Because the real controversy doesn't live in the footage that aired, it lives in the silence. And that silence speaks louder than any polished confessional, inspirational soundtrack, or carefully framed montage ever could. A simple question, one question about a past investment property cracked open a narrative that had been carefully packaged for viewers season after season. Once that question surfaced, everything else suddenly made sense. The storyline viewers were meant to accept without scrutiny began to wobble, and the cracks were impossible to ignore. This wasn't just any property. This was an investment home that was supposed to sell or rent, and it didn't either. No quick sale, no steady rental income, no triumphant vision realized moment. Instead, what followed was improvisation, explanation, and a quiet revision of the story being told. According to chatter from extended footage and people claiming insider knowledge, the decision for someone to live in that home was not a strategic business move. It wasn't part of some master plan. It was surrender, a last resort after the market refused to cooperate and the numbers refused to lie. And from a business perspective, that is exactly where eyebrows shoot straight up. Because repeating a failed formula while expecting applause is not confidence, it is denial dressed up as ambition. Huntsville is not overflowing with buyers lining up for multi-million-dollar properties, no matter how often the narrative insists otherwise. Yet the blueprint keeps getting reused, like failure is just a misunderstood phase that will eventually turn into success if you believe hard enough. That's why the deleted exchange mattered so much. It didn't expose a one-time hiccup, it exposed a pattern. And patterns are far more dangerous to an image than isolated mistakes. Originally, viewers were shown optimism, positive projections, hopeful timelines, confident language. What they were not shown was accountability. What was edited out were the hard questions that challenged the storyline at its foundation. When someone questions why unsold inventory keeps piling up, that is not negativity, that is not hating, that is due diligence. That is logic. That is the exact question any serious investor, lender, or buyer would ask. Yet somehow, that logic became too inconvenient for primetime television. And then there's the production angle, which only deepens the suspicion. Because cutting critical context does not protect the audience, it protects an image. Selective editing has a funny way of turning hard questions into soft montages and uncomfortable moments into inspirational background music. And when that happens repeatedly, viewers are not wrong for feeling manipulated. Reality television may thrive on drama, but it also depends on trust. Once that trust starts to erode, every storyline feels staged, every win feels exaggerated, and every failure feels deliberately obscured. Add to that the ongoing whispers about licenses, stalled projects, and grand announcements that quietly fade into nothing, and suddenly this stops being gossip. It starts looking like a trend. Success is usually loud when it is real. It announces itself through results, not explanations. Silence, on the other hand, tends to follow exaggeration. When projects disappear without updates and timelines keep shifting without clarity, the audience notices, and increasingly, they are no longer willing to look the other way. Outside the carefully edited world of television, audiences have grown sharper. They are less willing to accept surface-level storytelling and far more interested in receipts than rhetoric. They notice when explanations change, when goals move, and when criticism disappears from the screen but explodes online. They notice when questions are asked off-camera but avoided on it. That growing awareness is what makes this moment different from past seasons, because the audience is no longer just watching, they are investigating. They are connecting dots, revisiting old footage, and asking why certain truths feel permanently delayed. When reality television forgets that viewers are intelligent, backlash becomes inevitable. And that backlash isn't about hate, it's about trust. Trust that what you're watching, even if dramatized, is not deliberately misleading. Trust that producers aren't quietly deciding what viewers are allowed to question. Once audiences believe they are being managed instead of informed, every future storyline is questioned, every success is doubted, every excuse is weighed against memory and receipts along with patterns. And patterns do not lie. They repeat, especially when cameras keep missing the moments that explain everything. Once the dust settles on the missing footage and the unanswered questions, the story only gets messier. What was hidden becomes far more telling than what was shown. Suddenly, a pattern emerges that cannot be ignored. Expensive homes remain unsold, licenses are questioned, projects announced with fanfare slowly vanish into limbo as if they were never real. Insiders whisper about lavish spending that looks impressive on camera but makes little sense on a balance sheet. Extravagant furnishings, high-end appliances, costly landscaping that never yielded meaningful returns. And yet, the same approach continues. Martell continues to pursue the same formula with the same unflinching confidence, as if repetition alone is a strategy. Critics call it ego-driven folly. Supporters call it vision. Everyone else is left scratching their heads trying to understand what really drives these decisions. And the public reaction only amplifies the scrutiny, because social media has become a magnifying glass where every misstep is dissected, every explanation challenged, and every success scrutinized for authenticity. In that environment, confidence without results stops looking aspirational and starts looking performative. When Chris called out the repeated failures, it was more than just critique, it was a mirror reflecting the disconnect between ambition and reality. At the same time, it raised uncomfortable questions about how much of the narrative is shaped in editing rooms rather than construction sites. That fuels speculation, with some sources claiming production is invested in maintaining a specific image, shielding certain cast members from criticism while exposing others to maximum drama. Whether true or not, the perception alone is damaging, because perception is everything in reality television. The fallout is instantaneous. Online forums light up with commentary, memes, and speculative theories that spiral into viral discussions. Each new leak or revelation reinforces the belief that what viewers see on television is only the tip of the iceberg. And with that realization comes a hunger for transparency that remains frustratingly unfulfilled. The more viewers feel information is being withheld, the more aggressively they search for it elsewhere, and that is a dangerous game for any production to play. As the controversy simmers, attention naturally turns to Melody's sold-out event, a public celebration that stands in sharp contrast to the turmoil behind the cameras. It becomes more than just an event. It becomes a statement, a reminder that influence, relevance, and success can exist independently of manufactured drama. The crowd, the energy, and the undeniable reach of the moment all signal something reality television often forgets. Real success doesn't need editing. It doesn't need a storyline. It shows up in real time with real people and real impact. Melody's moment forces viewers to reconsider what authenticity actually looks like, because nothing about that event felt curated for television. It wasn't framed, softened, or packaged. It was tangible, earned, and in parallel, it quietly challenged the idea that relevance must be tied to a show. Sometimes stepping outside the circus is the clearest demonstration of growth, and that contrast only sharpens the questions viewers are already asking. Then enters Carlos King, swinging verbal chairs at reality stars who quit the show or avoid conflict. His commentary adds another layer to the conversation, emphasizing that participation in reality television comes with accountability. His message is blunt. If you sign up for the spotlight, you don't get to pick and choose the consequences. But his critique also opens a broader discussion about fairness, about the ethics of editing, about audience manipulation, and about the pressures cast members face as they navigate fame, expectations, and relentless public judgment. But from the outside, viewers saw a